Hey folks, back with another video. Let's dive into what stories got my attention today. The Ethiopian jets continued to bomb the Tigray region on Friday, and Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed pledged more airstrikes in the escalating conflict amid reports that Tigrayan forces that seized control of federal military sites and weapons. Now, civilians in the northern region were advised that the way they could avoid collateral damage was by not gathering outside as the strikes would continue. Something Abe said in a televised speech on Friday evening, defying international pleas for both sides to show restraint. Now, the developments illustrate how quickly the days old conflict has escalated, raising the threat of a civil war that experts and diplomats warned would destabilize the country of 110 million people and hurt the broader Horn of Africa. A simmering row between Abey's federal government and his former Tigrayan allies exploded on Wednesday after Abey ordered a military campaign. Abey, who won last year's Nobel Peace Prize, accused the Tigray People's Liberation Front of attacking a federal military base and trying to steal equipment. He said, quote, "the last red line," end quote, had been crossed. Now, in a step to further deny legitimacy to Tigray's regional government elected in September against the federal government's advice, Ethiopia's federal parliament on Saturday approved the formation of an interim government for the region. Now, one of the biggest risks is that the Ethiopian army will splinter along ethnic lines, with Tigrayans defecting to the regional force. There are indications that this is already happening, experts have said. Tigrayan forces were in control of the federal military's northern command headquarters in the city of Mekelle, according to a United Nations internal security report dated Friday and seen by Reuters. The Northern Command is one of Ethiopia's four military commands and controls the border with Sudan, Djibouti, and Eritrea. Continuing in this vein, the Sudan's eastern Al-Qadarif state closed its border on November 6 with Ethiopia amid military operation in the Tigray region, citing security tensions. Now, Sudan's army has deployed reinforcements at the border to block any potential infiltrating of Tigray fighters into the other regions. Quote, "the stability of Ethiopia is important for the entire Horn of Africa region. I call for an immediate de-escalation of tensions and a peaceful resolution to the dispute," end quote, the UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres said in a message on Twitter on November 6. Now, personally, I think the civil war is here, and what the international community needs to do is build a counter to any spillover into the neighboring countries and also work to prevent any to take advantage of the situation. Moving over to Iraq, an anti-government protest has during an anti-government protest, there was a person who was killed and 40 others wounded in the southern city of Basra on Friday. Now, medics said that Omar Fadl was hit by at least one bullet as hundreds of protesters and the anti-riot police clashed. Now, Basra security sources and rights officials said several dozen protesters took to the streets in the country's southern oil hub demanding jobs and basic services. Now, they were angry at Prime Minister Mustafa Al-Kadhimi and at Prime Minister Mustafa Al-Kadhimi, who had generally failed to deliver on both his promises and that the protest camps had been cleared by security forces in Basra and the capital Baghdad, the rights officials said. Now, it was the first killing of a protester by security forces in Basra since Kadhimi took office in May. Iraq's Interior Ministry confirmed the death but said in a statement that no Iraqi security forces were being allowed to use weapons against demonstrators and that it was investigating the incident. In a separate incident on Friday, a key figure in anti-government protests launched in Baghdad in October 2019 was shot while driving through an eastern district of the capital. The name of the activist was not immediately known. Last Saturday, Iraqi forces cleared out sit-ins tents from Baghdad's central Tahrir Square that had been the epicenter of anti-government mass protests that erupted last year. They also removed tents in Basra's Bahriya Square and in other southern cities that have seen huge protests through the past year. Now, the removal of the tents has led to tensions and protesters in Basra have been trying to erect them again, holding a demonstration in the city of the past 3 days. They're also demanding the sacking of the governor and an investigation into previous killing of protesters. Well, it seems that Iraq is in for some time of some let's just say protests, and they're going to. I would personally say that this is a wake up call to the Iraqi government to get their act together, or else these protests will get completely out of hand, and the whole government could uh, be put under another kind of a situation where they might lose whatever goodwill they have in the public's eyes. Moving over to check in with the developments regarding the weekend protest in Belarus. Lukashenko's son and National Security Advisor Viktor is amongst new EU sanctions targeted by the EU's, as are Lukashenko's spokesperson Natalia Esmon and the head of the Belarusian Secret Service Ivan Tertel. Now, in total, the EU sanctions targeted some 60 people. In response, the Belarusian Foreign Ministry in Minsk said that the latest sanctions would not go unanswered. The list is currently being carefully analyzed, a spokesperson said. Russia seems will join Belarus in sanctioning the EU, the news agency Interfax reported, citing circles in Moscow. Belarus responded to the first set of sanctions by recalling ambassadors from the European embassies and calling on countries including Poland and Lithuania to do the same. The projects were frozen and the authorities cancelled the accreditation of foreign media correspondents working in Belarus. Lukashenko himself appeared unconcerned by the events and on Friday opened a new metro station in Minsk. Now he also increased pensions slightly, raising the average monthly payment to 500 Belarusian rubles, 193 US dollars, as of December 1. Now, last Sunday alone, 300 people were detained, according to the Interior Ministry. Photos and videos showed security forces using flash and shock grenades against the peaceful crowd. The Belarusian leader was initially spared from inclusion on the EU blacklist imposed early last month on 40 officials accused of fraud and of rights abuse. Diplomats had feared that adding his name to the list could exacerbate the crisis. Belarusian officials have repeatedly accused the EU of interfering in their domestic affairs. Now it seems that the window of opportunity to knock Lukashenko's government is closing, and once the winter comes in, it will be effectively all over. The weekend protest will come to a complete halt and maybe will resume next year. Moving over to see the domestic politics of Turkey, Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan removed the country's central bank governor Murat Uysal from his post on Saturday after the Turkish lira reached a record low. The decision was made by presidential decree and announced in the country's official gazette with no immediate reason given for the sacking. Uysal's replacement, after just 16 months in the job, was named as former Finance Minister Nasi Akbal. Uysal took on the role after a dispute between Erdogan and the previous governor Murat Setinkaya over cutting interest rates. Now, in the past few months, the lira has hit repeated historic lows against the international currencies, and by late Friday stood at 8.52 to buy $1. Now, the lira has lost almost 30% of its value against the dollar this year, with markets worried about a persistently high inflation rate that remains in the double digits. Investors were also spooked by a sharp drop in the country's foreign currency reserves. Now, Turkey's internal economic and political situation is something that I have been paying attention to, as I believe that President Recep Tayyip Erdogan's policies are here to blame. He is putting his country's economic future in jeopardy for some short-term gains by reducing interest rate while there is high inflation. And I believe, I have not looked into their balance sheet, but I'm assuming they're also printing heavily, and they've already done some printing in the past. So this is going to turn into a perfect storm. This is the part of the, all the central banks are doing is they're running to the bottom of the pit by printing money. And I would urge them to quit doing that, and they should focus on, if they're ever going to focus on anything, to control inflation. That should be their prime goal. Well, that's it for this video. If you like the video, then hit that like button and hit that subscribe button for future updates. Write in the comments your thoughts, criticisms, and anything I might have missed. And I will see you in the next video.